Hello, everybody. Welcome to ZK Live. I'm Zach Kenney. This is episode 14. It's a Sunday night. I'm doing this episode by myself. Probably going to be a short one, about probably keep it to an hour. I'm going to be taking some of your questions. I have a few topics that I'm going to talk about, but definitely want to get as much input from you guys as possible on this one. How you doing, Seacoast? It's a Rhode Islander right there. So I'm going to talk about a few things that have sort of been on my mind because of some interactions I've had in the last couple weeks. Sort of what's going on in the company. And then a few things I had seen on another live. But if you're not following us on YouTube or TikTok, I highly recommend it. The TikTok blew up this last week, and our interns are working hard on the YouTube channels. You can view all of these past episodes on YouTube. We're going to be editing them up and putting clips out as well. That's on its way soon. All of these episodes are on Spotify now, and any day they should be on iTunes as well. Let me know if you're not seeing them. But hello, I can't wait and paint my house. Oh wow. I think I remember your house down in Wickford. I'm sure it's looking amazing. You had some great ideas and some really cool colors. Yes. So let's talk about schedule. Let's just talk about what's going on in ZK Painting and scheduling. I'm a little frustrated. We had the bronze metal project that we're working on. We're spraying an accent wall with bronze, Vero metal, doing a patina, and then applying a clear coat. Yes, ZK Painting on Spotify, I believe. Or ZK Live, it might be under. I'm not sure. I'll try to post some links when the Tuesday the interns come in again. But yeah, we were doing this spraying this metal project. It's pretty far away. It's 2.5 hours away from us. But it was a metal project. I really wanted to do it. So anyway, we showed up and the walls were a mess. They were not nearly ready for. I have a hard time focusing and reading at the same time. My ADD kicks in. But we showed up. The walls needed a bunch of work. Not ideal when you're traveling far. They agreed to pay us more to make the walls smooth. But we've now run into a massive issue with plaster failing over and over and over again. It's set us back over a week now. We skim the walls out, we go to prime them, and then the primer, as it dries, it shrinks, and there's some surface tension, and that surface tension is actually like peeling it's like splitting the primer, and it's peeling the plaster off of the wall. The plaster is not adhered to itself. So we have been fixing that over and over again. Plaster falls off the wall when we're rolling the second coat or something like that. They'll roll, plaster just falls off the wall into the roller. So we dig it all out, we prime it, we patch it, moving on. We've done that so many times now. Friday was the last time we talked to the contractor. I was just like, look, I'm fed up. We are way behind schedule. They're agreeing to pay us for this time, but still, like, schedule is more important. Anyway, again, we just checked it this weekend, and it's still failing. We keep patching it and keeps failing. So my schedule is a mess. So I would love to hear what people are doing to manage schedule. I've decided, so then I tried to turn and tell the client that we were coming to next, hey, I'm really sorry, but we're delayed on this project. Can we start a week later? Well, they were like, no. Like, they didn't say no. But they were like, we're not very happy about that. And understandably so. People plan on having us in their house. It's a big deal. If I go to move the schedule, it affects a lot of people. So I've decided to show up to that job. We're going to complete that project, and we're going to delay the bronze wall project. It's made me rethink a lot of how we're going to look at leading into a project, sort of the checklist of things that we need to see, and making that very explicit so that when we do show up to a project, we don't get these setbacks. Had I just said I need a sound wall that is perfectly smooth and ready for top coat, and if that's not the case, I'm leaving and not coming back until you give me that, I think it would have worked out better. I was talking to Chris Polidoro from Shoreline, and he was like, yeah, like, when that happened, you should have just left. And I just want to make everybody happy, and it's like, oh, maybe it's just a day, we'll just like quickly skim it out. But as soon as things weren't ready, my schedule is very important because clients are depending on us. And right now, I'm under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure because we have 9 painters now. We have so much going on. I have so much to manage. Things don't go as planned. Like the garage door project that we're on, the client, which I think is a great idea, but the client changed the scope and the spec after we stripped the doors. They decided they wanted to go with the black stain. Well, that's a completely different system. We had to order the gloss top coat for that system. So now we're delayed because we're waiting for product to come in, where I had all the product lined up to do just a natural stain and clear coat. So having all those things, juggling all these balls and trying to keep schedule on point is starting to be more and more of an issue. So I would love to hear what other people have as far as systems and processes to prevent this kind of stuff. It is nice that we have 9 people now. I do have a little bit of flexibility. I like being at this size because we have the flexibility to move some people around. And some of our projects aren't on strict timelines, but still, you expect this is how long it's going to take, this is what to expect, and when you show up and things aren't like that, it's definitely really frustrating. And it's something that I'm going to be working a lot to try to mitigate and make those things not as big of an issue. But that being said, I also had I think some people probably saw my story this last week or the week before, I'm not sure. Time is like a blur right now. But we have a lead job coming up, and I was on the phone with the lead licensing people in Rhode Island because I haven't done a lead job in so long. Our license expired. And of course there was no, at the time I found out I'm taking a class, but at the time he was telling me there was no classes to take, and he wasn't really sure how I was going to get a license in time. And I was stopping at my house. I got off the phone from that conversation to see my neighbor having their house painted, the outside of their house painted by a guy who was clearly not following the lead laws. I had not received the notification, first off. That was the first thing I realized. I was like, wait a second, they never sent me the notification that said lead work is going to be happening at this property in the next week or so. I forget how many days in advance you have to give it, but so that was like the first thing that went into my head as I was thinking about this lead stuff. There's a guy over here, and he has not sent me the notification that I was literally about to print them off and send them to all the neighbors on our project. So I approached him. I was a little fired up. I tried to keep it calm, but I was a little fired up. And I just started like going down a list of things that he was doing that were not up to the standards of RRP or the EPA and the way we're supposed to treat lead. And I got this like very annoying response that really like resonated because I think it's a response that a lot of contractors would have, and I don't think that it's professional, and I don't think it's right. But his defense was he had been lead certified. He knew what the lead laws were, but his defense was, well, this client's never going to pay me to do it right. And he's like, he actually even said like, oh, how am I supposed to eat? Something along those lines. And so it's like, man, you're the professional. The doctors don't get to lower the standards because someone can't afford it. Like, if we're professional, our job is to come to the client and so this is the bare minimum I need to do. Like, I need to protect you. This is a poison, this lead that we're dealing with. is poisonous, and it's an irreversible poison in many cases, and it's really bad for children. And I need to be take the precautions to be safe and make sure that we don't get a bunch of people sick. Instead, because this man and many contractors in my area and probably everywhere, they're not very professional. They know how to paint, but they don't know how to run a business. And I think that just because you know how to paint is not enough to run a business. And if you're going to run a business, you need to do a number of things that are not painting. And that's sales and marketing are two of them. And if you don't understand and don't know how to sell, you should learn how to sell. But if you can't sell a client the legal way to do the project, we're not saying sell them on a Rolls Royce here. We're saying just sell them on, educate and sell them on what needs to be done to protect them and to be legal. That is not a high bar. But in my area, I rarely see anyone doing lead legally. It does cost, I would say it costs at least twice as much. 50% of your day is tied up in things that aren't painting. And so the client was clueless. So I'm fired up. I'm going down the list. This guy's got pieces of plastic that are supposed to overlap each other as they go off from the house. And there's big, they've spread out because they didn't have a rock or anything holding them down. The plastic's not 10 feet off from the wall. He's using a shop vac, which, does not have a HEPA filter and is going to just aerosolize fine lead dust everywhere. He's not masked the insides of the windows. His employee was wearing a dust mask, an N95 dust mask on his chin. And the client didn't know, as far as I know, the client did not know that they were breaking the law and they were being unsafe. So that's really sad because this lady got 3 quotes. She talked to 3 contractors. Now, did she call me? No, she didn't call me. I'm sure she's cheap. Like, that's obvious. I'm sure she's cheap. She didn't call me. She sees my truck every single day. She called people who were going to be cheap, I think. She self-selected for guys who were more likely to not tell her the truth. So now she looks at me and is like, well, everyone was the same. They were all about the same price. And it's like, okay, well, that tells me that 3 contractors came to this woman's house and they all gave her prices to paint the house like it was not lead. And then they did these half-ass, this guy was like kind of treating it like it was lead. He had some plastic out and he had a respirator on. His employee didn't. He had a spray bottle sitting in the corner someplace. You're supposed to wet before you scrape. He had like a couple things where he was doing this insanely half-ass attempt at following the lead laws, but not telling anybody that he was doing lead. And it was so bizarre. And anyway, by the time I was fired up, but by the time we sort of ended, it was just like, look, man, like, I'm not going to tell anybody. But if you can sleep well at night, knowing that you're exposing her grandchildren and, I don't know, anyone that comes into this house, you didn't even tell her what's happening. So she's probably not even going to clean the inside of her house thoroughly like you would if you knew there was going to be lead on the inside. And the guy was then all distraught. He's like, well, now I'm not going to be able to sleep at night, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what are we doing? If we're going to be in business for ourselves, and we're going to be in business, there's some just basic standards that you're going to want to try to meet. And here's the kicker to all of this is I have this lead job and I'm not sure I can get this lead license. So I talked to this guy. He knows what he's doing. He just couldn't sell. I feel for the guy. English is his second language. It's hard enough to sell when you speak the language well. I can't imagine trying to sell clients on jobs in another language. I would suck at it. So I give him a lot of props for doing it. But you need to be a professional and educate clients. And you need to be able to walk away. To any job you estimate and bid as a contractor, you need to be, and in anything in business, you need to be able to walk away. You can't need any one job. Otherwise, you have no leverage. So this is a guy who tells me I'm not going to be able to eat. That's why I gave her this job breaking the law to be cheap. And then when I came to him a few days later, it was like, I have a lead job. If you're willing to do it legally, I would love to sub it to you because I'm not sure that I'm even going to get a lead license at this point. And he tells me, oh, I'm booked till the end of September. Okay, that is insane. It's one thing to say that I don't have enough work to eat. But when you then go, well, when I'm booked till September, this is insanely unprofessional. Now you're just full of it, and you knew very well what you were doing. But then the question is, why take on that lead job? And it kind of gets underneath my skin because there's contractors who are trying to follow the laws, and the laws are there. They're bare minimum laws. They're there to keep people safe. And we're going to follow those laws, and we are undercut. And I'm not talking like by a couple companies. I struggle to think of companies in my state that are going to take that job on and do it right. There's a handful of them. And there's probably thousands of paint contractors in Rhode Island. So as contractors, as a paint contractor, that's a lot of why I'm doing this show and why I'm as vocal as I am on social media about what we are doing, because I want to see that level elevated. Now, I don't know what is going to happen with this guy, but I hope, I pray. I told him, go pray on this, man. Like, you go sit with your God or whatever you got to do, your conscience. And if you tell me you feel good about this, all right, man, but I think we both know that you're not doing the right thing. And it's like, if no one gave this lady a bid that was undercutting and illegal, she would have had to choose from one contractor who was, all the contractors were going to do it legally. So this like race to the bottom that our trade has going on it hurts everyone. When we don't show up as professionals on every level, it's not about giving a professional paint job. Because this man knows how to give a lead certified legal paint job. He knows how to do that. He went to class. He tells me, I have the HEPA vacs at my house. They cost me $1,500 for the 2 vacuums. I have them. But they're not on the job site. And he's vacuuming up with it. So it's like that disconnect of, you know better, but you're not raising the standards. And it's like maybe less people should be in business for themselves and should be working for legit companies. And if you're going to go work for yourself, please, I started off doing lots of things illegal. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but it's about trying to be better every day. And when you can't just follow the lead laws or just give a customer a positive experience, not like the paint job is great. We all need to have, at the end of the day, you can't stay in business if you're not giving good paint jobs. But many people can apply paint. If you're going to be a company and you're going to be successful, the customer experience has to be as important as applying the paint. How about just showing up on time? Like this scheduling thing I'm dealing with these other clients. Like, I'm not going to leave this guy hanging. And the client the GC who didn't prepare the substrates well enough for me, he's going to have to push his schedule. And that's on him, and he's going to have to deal with that. Because I'm not going to sacrifice my client who did nothing wrong and has been an amazing client. I'm not going to sacrifice them and their schedule because somebody else made a mistake. And I don't know what the answer is, but it is definitely frustrating when I look around. I live on the east side of Providence. There's a lot of old homes, but there's also a lot of money. And I can't tell you how many times, I can't even tell you the last time I saw an exterior repaint that was following the lead laws. Honestly, and you see them all the time. And it's a little thing. It's under my skin. I don't know. Please put your questions in here. Somebody had put a question in here earlier. Seltzer. Oh yeah. Out of desperation today, I had to go and get Poland Springs. I'm out. I gotta go to I buy like 5 24 packs of seltzer at BJ's now, and they still disappear so fast. My new favorite is the San Pellegrino, the small narrow cans of San Pellegrino seltzer. They're delicious. How much responsibility falls on the homeowner? As far as I know, and I'm not an expert at this stuff, but as far as I know, it's not up to the homeowner. It's up to the contractor. So I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that the client can turn around and hold the contractor liable, even if the client knew that the contractor wasn't following the laws. When you do lead work, as far as I understand it, as a contractor, fancy. I've been accused of being a little fancy sometimes. As far as the lead laws go, like if I'm going to do a project, we have to have a notebook, a 3-ring binder that we keep for 3 years. I'm liable for children getting poisoned with lead for 3 years after I do a project. Right there, that extra liability means the price goes up. If I just repaint the inside of your house, I'm not liable for children's lives 3 years later for the paint job I do, right? So if I'm going to do a lead job, I should make a little extra money, right? Why would I take on the risk? And that's how I've looked at it. That's why we've done, I think, 2 big lead jobs in my career. And I'm doing one for a good client. It's not a huge one, but... So you have to document your procedures. You have to have a sign in and sign out for all of your employees each day. And you have to keep that book for 3 years. That's a lot of extra stuff. You have to have signed off that all of your employees went through a training program that you gave to them on how to do this properly. Because I'm going to go get lead certified as the owner of the company, or as you can get, anybody in your company can get certified. And that's why no one wants to do lead, because children get tested for lead at school when they're young, and if they do find elevated levels, then an investigation starts. And they'll go to the family and say, give us a list of every contractor who's worked in your house in the last 3 years. And then they come to me, and if I don't have that notebook and all the proof that I did everything right, I'm liable. Massive, massive liabilities. So, yeah, it's scary to do lead jobs. And I don't believe that the client is responsible for much. It's sort of like the patient being responsible for the doctor following the laws. Like, the doctor's responsible for knowing what to do and how to do it properly. And if a doctor had a patient come and say, I want you to break all the laws and not do it the way the standards are, I'm pretty sure the doctor's going to say, well, see you later. I'm not going to do that. Unfortunately, as painters, we have such a low bar in our industry. Let's be honest. We don't have, you don't have to go to school for 4 to 6 years. You don't have to go to residency for 4 to 8 years, whatever it is. You don't have to pass boards. You essentially have to breathe and have paid $800 to an insurance company. And if you've done those 2 things in the state of Rhode Island, you have a contractor's license and you can go painting. So when you look at that, it's like, yeah, the bar's really low. So you get a lot of these guys who the guy had a nice lettered up van. I'm sure he does good. He does good work, but he does good work. He doesn't run a good company, and that's the difference. And that's where people are. I would argue people are taking advantage of him, and he's selling himself short, and incurring a lot of liability. Now I started from nothing. I had nothing, and for a long time I didn't care about the liability I was incurring because I didn't have anything to lose. I still don't have much to lose, but I have something now to lose. And I think there's a big part of that that's kind of a piece to this puzzle is if you have nothing and you have nothing to lose, it's a lot easier to take ridiculous risks and do things illegally and risk people's lives and undercut the market because you're just trying to stay. I mean, for a long time I was just trying to have enough food to eat. And, I said I had a company. I didn't have a company. I still don't have a company. I work for myself. We're trying to build a company or a business. But I think a lot of people are working for themselves. It's not running a business. And in many cases, I think people would be better off working for a legit company, working 40 hours, making their money, being steady, and then having free time. And I would argue that many contractors would make more money if they worked for somebody else and they'd have less stress. And they probably would have a 401k and they would have health insurance. And it's just so easy. The bar's so low to go be a contractor, to have a contractor's license and paint, that I talk to people all the time. And like most of my neighbors, and like they're not going to hire us because there are a countless numbers of good painters that will come do the job for much less. Now, are they turning a profit? Are they employing people and in enhancing their lives and giving them a positive, safe workplace? Are they doing any other things? Like, no, they're probably not. And that allows them to charge less money. And I don't know. I want to continue to work to like raise the standards because it is painful to see. Not that we're busy. We have plenty of awesome work. It's not like I'm upset that client didn't call me. My neighbor didn't call me to hire me. That's not what I'm upset about at all. Now there's a world where I should be, but like it's just more the entire overall standards of our business. I feel like I'm ranting now and not being coherent, so we're gonna move on. San Pellegrino is really good. Let's see, what are the top 3 tools you recommend for a DIY person for painting jobs? All right, so I think if you're going to do your own painting, let's talk about interior. I think that's easier. If you're going to do your own painting, I would highly recommend starting inside first. Exterior with ladders, ladder safety. It's just a whole thing. We'll start with inside. I think it's really important to have a good brush, to have a vessel to paint out of that's not the gallon of paint. That's paramount. You can use a $3 brush, but don't paint out of the gallon full. That's a fool's errand. It's very painful to do. So you get yourself some sort of a vessel, not a coffee cup. You're going to go through the paint too fast, but something with a wide base. Put a couple inches of paint in it. Get a nice brush. Go on YouTube, watch a video on how to brush with paint. You dab it in, you load the paint up on the brush, you touch the sides, or some people wipe, and then you go up to the wall and there's the whole thing. There's plenty of people who tell you how to use a brush, but have a good brush. Protect your surfaces, protect your areas. Like we've talked about this before, but take the time to not just start painting. I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but my mom heard one of these DIY tips that we had talked about, and she's grown up around me and my brothers and my dad and everybody painting, and she's painted a lot. And she's like, I still started off painting right away. And only when it became such a pain in the butt did I stop, go back, and actually start protecting surfaces. So DIY tips, have some drop cloths. You can use sheets, old sheets if you want. There's nothing wrong with having like a 1 or 2 like runners, we would call them, like a 3 by 15 foot long canvas drop cloth. They're not expensive. They're handy to have. Get a place to work. So set up a home base in the middle of the room, again with drop cloths, that has like all of your tools and your paint and everything kind of sitting there. Get a legit step ladder where you don't have to stand on the top of the step ladder. So if you're short or you can't reach off the 2nd or 3rd rung, get a 6-foot step ladder or a 5-foot step ladder. Don't try to stand on the top of something weird while you're painting up above yourself. Just be safe. So I'd say have a good ladder, have a good brush, have a vessel to paint out of that's not the gallon of paint. Have when you're going to roll, have a good roller, have a tray, and have a pole or why can't I think of the term right now? Have a rod that attaches to your roller handle. Somebody put the word I'm thinking of in the bottom here. I'm like blanking, but don't paint your walls holding your roller handle, the 9-inch, and going up and down. It's just a massive amount of work. The leverage points on your wrist, it just doesn't make sense. I don't care if you have to screw a broom handle, an extension pole, that's the word. Get an extension pole or a broom of some sort. I lost everyone. No one's watching this video anymore. That's hilarious because everyone's like, we know how to paint. Sorry, I shouldn't. Someone's going to get something out of this. Have your roller on an extension pole. I'm going to make a video about this. There's a very famous painter who has lots of paint videos. And he paints, I would argue, he's painting the wrong way with a roller. There is a direction that you want to roll with your roller across the wall. I see this all the time with professional painters. that we just, a lot of us just don't stop to think about what are we doing and why and the physics of it. But if you look at a roller handle, there's a metal bracket. It comes up, over, up, and then it goes to the roller, right? So you have a metal piece here that before it goes into the roller. That's when you apply pressure to the wall, you're applying pressure from that metal piece. So the left side here, right, of the roller. Now, I want that to be my lead edge. I'm going to work from I'm going to work from this side to this side because I'm going to lead my edge with that bracket, right? So as I push hard against the wall with my roller, that's the lead edge, and the trail edge is the edge that is not being pressed as hard, right? So I'm not going to have that line of paint because I'm giving it some pressure on the handle side, and my trail edge, my finished up edge where I'm not going back to it, that is the side where the bracket does not go into the roller handle. I see so many people flipping it and going across the wall with the trail edge, the last edge being the bracket side. Now, can you get away with it? Like, absolutely. If you're really good at painting, if you paint a long time, like this guy, a lot of people have, you can get away with it. But is it best practice? By no means is it best practice. I would challenge anyone to tell me I'm wrong, but the physics of it are if you have to choose which direction you're going to roll across the wall, you roll across the wall with your lead edge being the edge that's applying the most pressure. I don't wash out my rollers. I've heard people say that the rollers actually act better. I would be into washing out rollers if I got a better finish from them. I'll never wash out a roller to save money because it doesn't save money. Washing out rollers costs money. If you have nothing to do, if your schedule's not booked and you don't have, and you're not paying guys, and you're sitting around and you have time on your hands. I had time on my hands when I started working for myself. I had lots of time on my hands and not a lot of work. So yeah, be my guest. Clean out your rollers. It'll save you a few bucks. When you have a business that charges $65 to $75 an hour, and if I'm going to pay if I see an employee washing out a roller, that is costing me way more money than it costs to just get a new roller. So I don't. But yes, everyone, please, next time you're rolling a wall, think about the trail edge being the edge that doesn't have the pressure to it. Drives me crazy every time I see that. That's just a little pet peeve of mine. I think a lot about best practice and like, why am I doing what I'm doing? I try to, at least. Yeah, we clean out brushes. I'll tell you, I'm insanely guilty of throwing away $20 brushes that I used once. Like, I've done that if I'm gonna get a paintbrush out, it's fairly rare, and there have been times where I will guiltily say that I have wasted a brush because I just didn't have time to get back and clean it. I was doing a touch up. I needed a brush. I bought a brush. Embarrassing, not best practice. It doesn't take very long to clean out a brush, and brushes are $20, $25. A roller is $3, $4. It takes a lot longer to clean out. That's just sort of my 2 cents on that. Let's see. What causes beading? I'm not sure what you mean by beading. Are there left and right hand rollers? I think that's a joke. That has to be a joke. If it's not a joke, no, there's not left and right hand rollers. You just simply flip it around. But I'm sure he's joking. Yes, respect your brushes. Your brushes I see them as very different than rollers. Jobs that don't include high gloss doors, more of what small companies can compare to. Yeah, okay. So I will tell you that I'm probably not the best person to talk about this kind of stuff. I think that Nick Slavic, if you listen to Nick Slavic, has a much better handle on how to efficiently paint a room for the average person, with the average painter. We just don't do a lot of it. Honestly, I can't remember the last time we painted just walls. We're generally doing a sort of a full room, ceilings, walls, and trim. And the trim is generally the piece that takes the most time. The most amount of effort goes into making the trim beautiful. Walls too. But I mean, I think again, it's having clean lines is, someone says here, like having clean lines is important. A lot of times, like it's like prepping that surface ahead of time. Take a putty knife or something and like make sure those edges are sort of 90 degrees or sharp. There's not little bumps. Preparing the surface before you paint is huge. I think, again, like thinking out your process thoroughly, or if not writing it down, but thinking it out thoroughly is really important. I'm actually, I've been thinking more about that, but like having, I've worked for many, and there's many companies that are very efficient at painting, based, like, I don't want to call it basic, just standard repainting of rooms and things. I worked for a company, and it was like clockwork. We were just like, you go in, you set up, you prep. While you prep, someone is spot priming and then patching and then spot priming the patches. And then the trim gets painted except for the baseboards. And then we painted the ceilings and at the trim at the same time. And then the walls get painted at the very end, and then we would paint the baseboards at the very end of that. I think more than anything, just like think a lot about, like spend time thinking about this stuff. Like we're painters, or whatever. If you're going to paint, you're going to call yourself a painter, like spend time thinking about it. That sounds silly, but don't just go to work and just do what you did yesterday and just like take it as like, well, this is just what I do, or this is how my boss taught me. Like, use critical thinking. Think about why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I using this paint? Why am I using this brush? Why am I doing all of this? And when you can take things down, that's how I learned, like in school, like understanding the fundamentals and the concepts behind ideas. Some of my best teachers would talk about like the concepts behind ideas. Like we're not just like learning this to memorize it and spit it back out on a test, but learning the fundamentals of why am I doing what I'm doing. And then it's starting to, I feel like we as painters, we deal with a lot of order of operations kind of things. So I think the more that you can like spend time honestly thinking out why am I doing what I'm doing, it's great to talk to paint reps, but I don't think they generally, there's plenty of them that know a ton, but generally they don't know a lot about why you use a certain product in a certain place. They don't know the chemistry behind it, whatever it may be. But just spend, if I have one piece of advice for just like, even just regular house painting, is just take that pride. We're all on here because we have pride in what we do, but just like spend a little more time thinking about why am I doing this versus some other way of doing it. Somebody asked a question up here. How do you quote a room? I've heard it all. What's your method? No high gloss. Okay. All right, I'll tell you how I honestly, there's been a number of ways. I think that the man-day method is something Chris Polidoro did talk about. We've talked about it before. Determining how much work can one person do in one day, and then extrapolating from there. I think that's a useful way of sort of like looking at estimating. Now, I know there's plenty of people who are breaking it down by the 5-minute interval. But that's just not where we're at. I also know people who are estimating by the square foot. There are people who estimate by the square foot of the room, which is great if you understand the coefficients that you're going to then multiply that square footage by, and you vary them, right? Then there's people who measure the square footage of trim, square footage of walls, square footage of ceilings, and they multiply that way. I personally don't do it that way. I have done it that way. I find that that's very time consuming, and we've talked about this before. I think it's way more important to get a quote turned around fast than I think it is to be very, very accurate. If it takes you 3 days to be very accurate, or you're 10% more than if you were to spend those 3 days, but you turn that quote around instantly or within an hour, I think that you're going to be much better off getting that quote to the client within an hour and leaning a little bit on the high side. So if that's the case, having square footages for a room where you're going in there and you're literally adding up square footage of trim. I've done this before, and I used to do it. And I've bid a few fairly large jobs recently with the help of Chris Polidoro and his team. And we're looking at the square footage of the house times a coefficient. Now, that coefficient is very important. That's how you then determine, right? You don't just go, well, all my houses are X dollar a square foot. Because what if you go to a house that has a ton of ornate detailed trim work, right? That square foot price needs to be a lot higher for all that trim work, because you're not calculating amount of trim and giving a number. Oh man, I'd love to, but I'm trying to get away from actually doing any painting myself. If I'm painting, it's hurting the company. But so I think, like Slavic and many people will tell you, like, know your numbers, track your numbers. That is not my strong suit. I'll tell you right now, like, we're working on it. I just hired a company that's going to be doing all of our job costing and like figuring out how long it takes us to do jobs and how much money we do make. But I think, like, for a long time, it would just be like, and even still, Chris does it like better than anybody. Just walk into a room and just be like, this room's, let's see, $2,200, this room. You know, I think that you can dial in and get to that point where you can kind of go like I did a lot of T&M work for a period of time, and that was very helpful. Like, you would do a T&M job and you'd be like, oh wow, that, like, a room cost me $2,000 on average. And for a long time, a room cost me $2,000 on average to paint, which I know sounds like a lot to a lot of people, but we're not, like, it's a lot of detailed stuff went into those rooms, whatever. But I think that being able to turn around an estimate quickly is paramount to incredibly accurate. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Let's see. People said a bunch of stuff while I was ranting. Like I measure, then count doors, trims. Yeah. I know people have, like, but see how long that takes? Now, what I would recommend doing is going, what does that equal? If you were to take when you go into a room, add up ceilings, walls, trim, do all your little detailed calculations. It takes you however long it takes you. Get a price. Now take the square footage of the room, divide the price by the square footage. That will get you a price per square foot for that room. Track that for a little bit. And then that's where you'll start to get the coefficient I'm talking about is the price that you multiply the square footage by for the room. So, which honestly I don't really do that for single rooms. I should, and at a certain point, if I have an estimator, I'm gonna have to. I do a lot more of just by feel. Same with our front doors. Like, I'll just look at a door. I know how long it takes usually, and I can vary. Is this a more time-consuming door? Is this a fairly easy door? And you can move that coefficient based off of the sort of the details. So that's how you kind of can be more accurate. But I would encourage you to look at your price per square foot for those rooms and start tracking it. And you might find that, a completely standard room is $10 a square foot. When there's a bunch of extra doors or windows, right? Maybe it takes you longer, and so now you're at $12 a square foot if there's like a higher than normal amount of trim. If there's a higher than normal amount of walls and ceilings, then maybe you're going to lower your price, your coefficient that you multiply your square footage by. But I'm more and more, I I'm coming to believe that turning a quote around fast is the most important part. But I also have a skewed view on a lot of this stuff, and a different market and a different reputation than other people. Mostly my clients they already want us and they just want a price. I'm giving them an accurate price, but I'm sacrificing maybe 3 days of detailed estimating and hours of I used to just be insanely detailed in my estimating. And now I'm just trying to be as accurate as I can be, but I'm trying to do it a little quicker. The best way to get, someone asks, how do you get sharp lines? Use tape. It's a great way. I think frog tape is very valuable. Frog tape has an additive in it that if it gets wet, it expands a little bit and seals the edge. So if you're using frog tape, generally it's a good idea to apply your tape to a clean surface, use some pressure. All tape is pressure sensitive. Press it down, and with a very slightly damp rag, run it along that line. That's going to activate that sealant. That's going to seal that edge, and it's going to prevent you, especially if you're using oil-based paints. Oil-based paints won't seal that edge because they're oil and not water, and it won't react. So we try to always take a damp rag, wipe our frog tape, get the seal, and then go back. I've heard of a plethora. I'm sure many of you have heard of other ways of using tape and sealants. We don't usually do it that way, but to each his own. I do square footage of floor space that I skew a little high if there's a lot of trim. Yeah. Or super dark existing color. We do the same thing. That's a good point talking about dark color on existing wall. I'm also very clear in what paint I'm going to use and how many coats I'm going to use on every estimate, pretty much. Except for our doors. Our doors, I because they're just going to get a perfect door, and that's just going to happen, and however many coats I have to do, I'm going to do. But if I'm going to paint a room, and I'm giving you an estimate, I would say quite often, well over 50% of the time, the client has not picked the color yet at the time I'm giving the price. So if you're going to pick a yellow or a red, it's going to be, generally, it's going to be 3 coats, right? It's going to be an extra coat of paint. Excuse me. So I'm going to write in my estimate, I'm going to apply 2 coats of top coat for this price. If I apply 2 coats of top coat and we all agree it needs another coat, it's very simple to say, this is an upcharge, this is a change order. If you just say I'm going to paint the room, and then they give you a paint color that doesn't cover very well, because you should be picking the paint. I don't agree with having clients buy paint. I think that's an amateur thing to do. I just don't think it looks professional. You can convince me that I'm wrong, but you should be supplying the paint, and generally we should be speccing the paint. We're the experts, and that's my opinion on that. But if you say in your estimate the number of coats you're going to do, it's very easy to make an argument, well, this isn't covered well enough. If we need another coat, it costs more money. I have a set price for doors, windows, trim, price for unpainted, and price for painted. Sometimes I'm off, sometimes I'm on. And like you said, when it's detailed, that is my ass. Yeah, I think it's understanding the coefficient is very important. A 20-story building in 10 minutes and take steps. Yeah. Well, I take steps all the time. Like, my dad taught me that, actually, I think. Somebody taught me that. My stride is really close to 3 feet. We'll have to do a test, actually, this week. Someone remind me. I want to do we'll do an actual test. But I think I've done it before. But I will take full strides and just then multiply times 3 and get a rough estimate of how many feet that is. I've tried to use lasers in the past. I've used tape measures and done that in the past. I have a wheel that I use very frequently. That's my go-to, is a measuring wheel. But for small jobs, like, I'll definitely just put my heel against the baseboard, and I'll take a very set stride all the way out, multiply times 3, and that's what I use for my footage. But we should do a test of that, because I haven't thought about that. I'm on a week and a half behind on quotes. All right, Benjamin, if you're a week and a half behind on quotes, I would argue that you've lost a lot of jobs because you didn't get them a quote on time. I was guilty of that forever, and still sometimes I can be. It sucks. A lot of stuff's happening, but I really strongly believe that sacrificing accuracy, being higher, even if you want to say 30% higher, and getting them all out instantly, you're going to win more jobs and make more money by doing it that way than waiting a week and a half and apologizing and sending a quote to a client like, oh, I did that forever. It's not the way to go. You could for some paint. Oh yeah, that would be fun, Mickey. We'll go look at a room and we'll everybody can put in a bid on the job, and then we'll see where we end up. My buddy here, Ahmed, I do not speak English and I do not understand anything, unfortunately. Well, man, I wish I could help you with that one, but I can't help you, man. Thanks for watching, though. Years of doing it over and over. You're not a real painter if you use tape. Those guys got jokes. That is not true. Anyone who tells you that you're not a real painter if you use tape is full of it. It's all about getting the job done at the end of the day, making the clients happy. And there are many, many instances where tape is your friend. I'll just say that. I tell them it would be extra. Well, it's easier to tell them it will be extra with their preposterous color choice if it says I'm only doing 2 coats in the bid. 1 step equals 3 feet, yes. I understand, man. Get those bids out quick. Just start throwing high numbers at them. That will do better than having a pile of estimates sitting for 2 weeks. You might as well, I mean, in my experience, those projects are probably dead. A lot of them, at least, when you let them sit for 2 weeks before you, he said he's just kidding. I'm sure, I knew you were. Thanks. I try to be a good man. How would Mickey done that job without tape? I'm not following that one, but for some reason there. As a new painting business, what are some key things I can do to raise the standards? I mean, I think business, like the most important thing in business is demand. Having demand. So constrain supply. Don't try to grow until you have way more work than you can handle. If you have too much work, like way too much work, raise your freaking prices. Raise your prices until you're booked out a month, maybe 2 months. If you're booked out for 8 months and you haven't raised your rates, there's something wrong. Generally. Now, Jessica Allred is sort of a little bit different. She's $120 an hour and she's booked out for 8 months. But, because there's only 2 of them. And she's amazing. But I will say, generally, if you are booked out way in advance and you're not raising your rates, you are missing out. I talked to a guy the other day. He tells me he's bidding at $35 an hour in my market. And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, I'm booked for so long. He contacted me because he wanted to know if I knew anybody that he could give some work to. Well, first of all, $35 an hour, you can't sub work to anybody. Real companies are charging $50 to $75 an hour. The bigger companies have lower rates because they have more guys, generally. But if you're in business and you have tons of work, raise your rates. It's very important. We're here to make money, and not only make money, not undercut the market. So if you're $35 an hour in my market, you are drastically undercutting all of the other professional companies who are trying to make a living. They're trying to pay workman's comp, pay insurance, pay employees the right amount of money. Yes, too much work, not enough manpower equals raise your price. Always. Always raise your price. Get professional. So back to your question. If you're new, build demand. The demand side of the equation is everything in business. When you have, there's never a problem with having too much demand. Yeah, see? Pro Paint's got a lot of demand. These time and materials, and they're $80 an hour. And they're busy. So that's an equation. There's if you didn't take it, if you're going to run a business, I would recommend taking economics courses, business courses. Like there's a reason that those courses exist and classes exist. So I talk about this a lot, but in economics, my microeconomics teacher, I believe, was who was taught me. But there's a supply and demand curve, and where the supply and demand curve meet is the price. So if I'm gonna not try to do this, but if there's a lot of demand, if everyone wants you, right? You have 100 bids to get out today, and you only have one crew. You can only do one job. Now that means the demand is through the roof and the supply is really low. I don't know how to do, but that means the price. You're going to only have to sell one job of the 100. The price is going to be high, right? Because you only have to sell to one of those. Which of these 100 clients wants you the most? It's essentially what you're saying. So, if just because you have some work does not mean, everyone says this, and I'm going to do my John Shearer impression, but, I'm referrals only. I'm a referral only company. That's ridiculous. I used to say that very proudly. Let me tell you, I was so proud to be referrals only. I think it's silly. It's very silly. Because if you increase your demand, you don't have to hire more people. Say you don't want to get big. Fine. Don't hire more people. Increase your demand any way possible, because it will mean that you get to raise your rates. That is huge, because now you can make more money. And I'll tell you, when you get to raise your rates and your demand is high and your supply is constrained, you get the better clients. The best. You get to pick and choose the best clients, because you don't need them. If I don't need this project and I go into a negotiation, I'm going to negotiate to a much better deal for myself than when I started, I had nothing. I needed this project so badly. I was willing to do anything. I'd drop my number in half. I don't care. If it's going to put some food on my table, that was what I had to do. And it took me a long time to understand that I was not building the demand side. I was taking what was coming to me passively. I was passively living life, and whatever happened to me, I would deal with. And that is not the adult way to handle life. That's not best practice, for sure. Look at anyone successful. They are proactive people. They're not waiting for the world to come to them. They are going out and they're making their own luck, and they're making things happen. So waiting for the phone to ring and just saying I'm referrals only will massively limit. Now, I'm not saying go to Home Advisor and start paying them for leads, because I don't think that's not a good way to go either. But I'm talking about spend money on marketing, like get a logo, get a uniform, letter up a vehicle, get business cards, get as much professional marketing gear as you can. Spend money to bring in leads. Go join a networking group. I'm in a BNI group. It's been huge. Go spend time networking and getting out there, making connections, and then feeding those connections. Taking people to coffee, whatever it is. But if you say that I'm referrals only, you are shortchanging yourself dramatically. It's like choking off the gas to the engine and then wondering why it's not a roaring engine. To be honest, New England should be the place with more painters on the world, and most are doing crappy work. But that's why the standards. Yeah, I mean I agree. There's a high demand for painting here, and there are many people who aren't doing a great job and could be doing better. And I think there's no question that's true. I bid on a deck for redecking, and it was a low end, and I got beat by $500. So if you got beat by $500, if you had 15 high quality leads coming in, you wouldn't care if you lost one for $500, because you get one. And that's my only point, is like, get more demand. Just always be marketing, as Nick May says, like always be marketing, always be trying to build the demand side of your company. Way before trying to hire employees. Like, you can always raise your rates and lower your closing ratio, right? And keep the same number of employees. This live is ending. We're going to start. I went for more than an hour. I'm going to end it right now, and I'll come back on. We'll answer a few more questions. We'll see how it goes. Thanks, guys.